Well, freshly arrived back from the land of great hamburgers, freedom, and the brave are the Afrikaner Dom's three amigos, Corne Mulder, Theo de Jager, and Gerard Papenfuss. I haven't asked you guys yet, but I really hope you're going to make it to our conference in September. It'll be an official invitation on its way to you. But today, we're going to find out exactly why you went to America, what happened in America, and why you think that there could be somebody listening when so far nobody seems to be. Gents, thanks very much for joining me today and for bringing the fresh news to the BizNews community. Corne, from your side, well, first of all, when did you guys actually arrive back?
Good morning, Alec. No, it's afternoon. My apology. We arrived about 12:30, almost 1:45. We were out of passport control, and so it was earlier this morning, and it's good to be back.
You've had a adventure of note over there, which you're going to tell us all about in a moment. But why? And why did you, Theo and Gerard, go along? I can understand a politician going to see the Americans, but why the three of you, Corne?
Let me try to explain. There's always a causal link between how things develop, and we all know how this first 6 months of this year played out. It started off quite early in February when President Trump issued that executive order, and that shook things out, very much so in South Africa, by him referring specifically to the Afrikaner community by name. And then we all saw what happened after that. Mr. Rasool, who had to pack his bags and come home. And then we had some other delegations that went there, Solidarity and some others as well. And then we have the official visit by the president with his own team. We were then contacted from the United States by more than one group and more than one individual who said, but we believe that the Afrikaners' point of view should also be brought to the table, and we would like to ask Afrikaners themselves to come and do that. They invited the three of us. We didn't put our delegation together by ourselves. And I think it made sense because I'm looking from the political angle. Theo is doing the agricultural thing, and you know that plays a huge part right from farmers, right through expropriation, etc. And Gerard from the business side with regard to all the things that affect investments, that affect black economic empowerment and all that. So I think, with all due respect, looking back now, we were a very good team that could assist one another and played into different roles, and we were very well received.
Did you know each other before?
Yes, I think so. Well, we know each other much better now, I can assure you, after spending the time together. But we knew each other, moving into different circles, sometimes bumping into each other. But after having spent the last 10 days in each other's company, it was a very good exercise, and I think this friendship will go forward coming in time.
Theo, I have no doubt that you watched very carefully what went on in the Oval Office. Were you, what emotions did you have when you saw that the Kill the Boer chant was now being broadcast by Donald Trump to the world?
Well, of course, we welcome it. My constituency is the farmers, and when they sing Kill the Boer, they refer to us. Hence, for us, there is no grey area on it. And we have been communicating with embassies for quite a while, for a number of years. We've also been involved in the court case up to the point where the Constitutional Court judges thought it good to close the doors of justice on us, and we are part of the group of organizations who are now planning to take this thing further for international adjudication. So when it was shown in the White House, we welcomed it because we have now depleted all our local remedies, and it was a big thing for me personally when we sat there in the White House last week, and these high-level officials, the Director of State Security was there, the Director of Homeland Security was there, Senior Policy Officer in the Office of the Vice President was there. When they said, "We have heard you now," but now you must hear us. We have a few criteria by which we will measure the possibility of normalization of the relationship between South Africa and the United States. And the first one which came out was they want farm murders, farm attacks to be declared a priority crime on the same level as the poaching of rhinoceros. And they want a special investigation unit such as the Hawks to investigate it. But also, they want the ANC to publicly denounce this kill the farmer, kill the boer. They said those are the first two conditions for the normalization of relations. Well, and it's music to the ears of any farmer, no matter how big or small, how rich or poor, black or white, new or well-established.
And Gerard, from your perspective, the business side, we do know that BEE has hurt and affected businesses in South Africa. Did you get heard as well?
Absolutely, Alec. I expressed myself abundantly on the issue of the race laws. You know, there are 145 race laws currently in place. Some of them are not that, visible and doesn't get that much attention, but there are 145 laws that in some way or the other exclude whites to participate in the mainstream economy. I highlighted that. I dealt with the Employment Equity Act, where government, and I did it in each and every occasion, where government interferes with the right of a businessman to appoint people in the manner in which he like, based on merit. I explained what it means, how it is enforced, and I tell you, they couldn't believe their eyes or their ears. I mean, the fact that a government will go into such detail in telling a business how and what classes of people they must employ in terms of color and then also in gender, and then at the end to exclude from this thing a particular type of person, that is the white male, from this whole scheme, that is economic prosecution. I explained that. I also dealt with black economic empowerment that is destroying this economy and will to totally destroy the economy in time, because what they want to do, they want to take, and this is a blunt way of saying it, they want to take whites out of the economy. And this is what it all means. And they want to include other people, not on the basis of merit or on choice, but on the basis of color. Now, that cannot happen. And we will see that in terms of investment in South Africa, America is now set in one of their conditions is American companies need to be excluded from BEE. But although people are saying, but that only them, well, that is a huge message. The Europeans and everybody else will jump on the bandwagon. They will say the thing, and we will say, well, if it's not good for them, then it's not good for us. It only illustrates that BE cannot happen, and it will not happen. There will be the resistance to BE will increase. The whole piece of legislation will eventually falls away because it will not work. Because if you do that, you will destroy your own business. So, you won't comply. You will survive for as long as you can, but if you comply, destroy your business. A father do not bring in his son as a business, as a partner in your business, not very easily. He needs to do a lot before you get him the right, the privilege to be a partner in your business. Now they want others as a condition to do business, to have 51% of your business. Business say we're not going to do that, and we've expressed that and explained that in all audiences where we had the opportunity in the United States, and it was well received.
It's so interesting listening to this because at the time that Jacob Zuma was in full cry, I happened to be based in the UK. We were building an international business. And I too had that incredulous response from people when I told them what was going on in South Africa. The eyes were wide and then they glazed over. It was just they didn't believe me. Did these people believe you, Gerard? Did they actually believe what you were telling them, or did they think, oh, he's just exaggerating for effect?
Well, I think they believe it. I think in the sense that what I said, they take it as truthful. I've got no doubt that they know it's truthful, but at the same time, it's unimaginable. It is when you for instance explain employment equity, the fact that a businessman must actually sit in front of his computer and drop a spreadsheet and then on that basis appoint people, and then when you force that guy, that white person, and specifically a white man, out of business, he starts his own business, and then eventually he runs into the problem of BEE. I think it's beyond their imagination. They say, but it's impossible. And I've experienced it here when you sit with foreign envoys, ambassadors, and they listen to it. And after that, they say, I hear you, but I don't understand. It is so stupid that people say it is not possible that the government can go that far to destroy their own country.
Corne, you deal with the people who make these laws and have made these laws. Can you just explain to us why all of this has happened? It is interesting what Gerard was saying and Theo before. When you're outside of the country, you see things differently. Can you tell us, though, how did things get to the state that they're at, and indeed that the ANC keeps doubling down?
Well, and there was a time when anything the ANC did was accepted internationally as the ANC because the heritage of Mr. Mandela. But things moved on, and slowly but surely South Africa has decided, and that's the ANC with all due respect, to position themselves in international relations to become the enemy of the West, and to act in such a manner that they act as a threat to U.S. national security. And that they did by becoming friends with all the rogue states out there, the connections with Iran, the connections with Hamas, all those connections created the problem. And slowly but surely the focus came towards South Africa. And that was at the beginning of the year when President Trump basically took out a magnifying glass and said, well, let's have a look at what's happening in South Africa. It must be understood that we didn't go there to gossip. We didn't go there to tell tales, whatever, to the detriment of South Africa. No. We want our country to be a winning, successful country. But if you look at these things, and I used, for example, that investigation and the report that came from Professor William Gumede, where he says his investigation into black economic empowerment indicated that approximately, conservatively speaking, 1 trillion rand was divided over and over, empowering less than 100 individuals in South Africa. And then we talk about broad-based black economic empowerment. That's not the case. Now, the irony is, I had the opportunity in Parliament on the 27th of May to ask the specific question of President Ramaphosa, you remember, and he doubled down. He thought it was a good idea to give me an economic 101 lesson. That's interesting. But be that as it may, and since then, he has already doubled down again. He did so yesterday in his weekly letter, once again, that there's no way that they will move away from this, that, and the other. That's fine. That's their decision. But if the current policies, the current economic policies, can't get our economic growth above 1%, and we sit with an official figure of 32% unemployment, unofficially it's higher, it's 45 or more, even higher, then surely some way you are doing something wrong. And the international community, specifically in the US, should note of that. The United States wants to invest. They want to get involved in South Africa. But with those kind of things, it creates a huge problem. I think what pushed this to the brink was that when we had to form the government of national unity, there are all kinds of things in that statement of intent. But the one thing that brought different parties together was the pronouncement that we all agree we need to get the economy to grow and we need to create jobs. Fine, that's excellent, we all agree. But now the question is in terms of what kind of economic policy. And now it becomes clear after my question to the president, after he's doubling down, that the ANC seems to be under the impression that we will get that economic growth, that will create those jobs under the current failed, ideologically driven policies of black economic empowerment, of employment equity, the way they interpret it. And it's very basic. The basic fundamental difference is this. No one that I know in South Africa will differ from the concept that we should have equality of opportunity. That is, we all agree with that. But the problem arises when the ANC clearly now states they want to see equality of outcome. That's something completely different. It didn't even happen in the Soviet Union. It couldn't happen in the German Democratic Republic. And it's a very nice guys until they have reached this unreachable goal of equity in terms of outcome. It gives an excuse for transformation the way they interpret it. We cannot allow that, and the international community has taken note of this.
Theo, if we can just get to the specifics of what you found in the United States, we know pretty much how the ANC is stacking up. It doesn't look good on the trade side, and it certainly doesn't look good for the farmers in South Africa. So what message can you give them, if any, of hope after your visit there?
Well, first maybe a few fundamental things which we saw. I think in each and every one of the many meetings we had, it was very clear that those officials in the USA know exactly what's going on here. They are very, very well informed. We often say to each other when we left these meetings that the Americans are not misled by anything. They do not formulate their policies based on misinformation. They know what is happening here, and they know much more than what they read in the newspapers. Secondly, they understand the politics of South Africa, of SADC, and of Africa. And they have not written us off. Even though in many of the circles in which I move amongst farmers, where we thought something like AGOA is already off the table, we asked them, is there anything we can do to save AGOA? And they said, yeah, we must still decide on it. They understand that kicking us out of AGOA will hurt those who are the natural allies more than what it will hurt those who position themselves against the interests of the USA. I think the bullet is not through the church when it comes to AGOA. I think there's something that can be saved. And even in terms of these tariffs, the deadline is getting closer and closer. I think it can be saved if we do a few smart moves. Whether we can, amongst the policymakers of the day, I'm a bit skeptical about that. But also, they understand that the fault lines in South Africa does not lay between black and white, rich and poor, ANC versus other political parties, DA, Freedom Front, and so on. They understand that it is about those who come to the table with integrity and those who have dubious motives of self-enrichment and nepotism and corruption. They understand that. I think also they see us as the Afrikaners, as people who can make a positive contribution, both here in South Africa and also those of us who are farming elsewhere in Africa. We frequently discussed our involvement elsewhere in Africa. We had a lot of discussions, for example, about Zimbabwe, the potential of Zimbabwe, but also the impediments to doing business in Zimbabwe, and the issue of equal citizenship and of freedom for anyone to own farmland, and also about compensation. We discussed that in just about every meeting. But also, we discussed policy issues such as expropriation and how to get to fair and equitable compensation. It is in one of these discussions that they came out with one of the four criteria for improved relations. They said there's no way we can allow for compensation which is not market related. There's no way we can allow individual citizens to pick up the bill for a national imperative such as land reform. And there's no way we can allow an official, an employee of a political party to determine what the compensation would be. It should be established through due process, through the courts. And only after a court has decided, we should have a forced transaction. So the message we brought home was that they look at us in a very principled way, and either we meet these demands or we will pay the price. They don't need us as much as we need them when it comes to international trade. And I must say, we also met with business people, huge business people, those who import our wines and our fruits, and who distribute it through networks such as Walmart, who say to us, what you can produce, we can buy. We can buy much more than what you can produce. And we are keen to do it. When he heard that I have lychee orchards on my farm, he said, I will buy everything you can produce, because last year we could not bring in enough lychees from South Africa, and your products are very popular on the American markets. The opportunities are limitless. So we say to each other, the three of us, it is worthwhile turning on the pressure on the policy environment, which is actually closing these opportunities for us.
Gerard, from the business community's perspective, have you got any hope that you can give to them?
Well, there is a huge market. That the size of that market is so vast, Alec, and they do want to do business. I mean, that the whole system there is based on enterprise, doing business. That is the system. And there are these the tariff sword hanging all over our heads, and we hear how other African countries has responded. Because what Trump has done with the duties was a negotiating a measure. He says, come, let's talk. And there are ways to get around it. And other African countries have taken that opportunity, and they said, and they got help. And there are people that stands ready to say, well, we'll help you. But the ideology stands in the way. And that's the bottom line. There's a country, whatever we can produce, there's a country that can absorb it. But the Americans have put a condition to that. Do not interfere with BE in terms of how we trade. Now, Theo has said, he talking about the lychees. I mean, if the government can get its way, they won't give you a business license. Now, that's currently not in place. But it's there. It is on the law books that you can withhold a business license on the basis of not being properly BE'd. Now, Americans will not deal with you under that circumstances. Now, how can we? And this is the problem. So when we go to the United States and say, "Listen, we want to trade with you, but we can't." The type of deals what we are forced to make is legislate from a legislative point of view contaminated. They will punish South Africa. Now the question is, how do you punish South Africa without punishing the people that you don't want to punish? And they don't want to punish a particular class of people in terms of race, but they do not take kind of the fact that there's a political group who wants to benefit and extract as much as they could out of this system for the benefit of themselves, to the detriment of everybody, to the betterment of their own people. And if you look at how many people are unemployed, how many the youth unemployment, how many people get grants. I mean, the figures are staggering. The system is about to fail. It is failing. Now, now, at what point will you say this is a failed state? I mean, there's not a point where you say this is actually the case. But the point is, it is in our hands, and there needs to be as much pressure on this government as possible. Now, why the United States? Well, at least it's one country that stood up and say, we take note what is happening in South Africa, and they raised their voice, and we appreciate that. The others are reluctant to speak out. We know that business people in Europe are very concerned about what's happening. This morning we heard about Mercedes-Benz that apparently shows signs of they want to leave. I mean, I've heard that for quite a while. They can't survive in this environment. And how can a government, when they see that, and I mean, Mercedes-Benz leave the Eastern Cape, can you imagine? And then the rest will follow. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. The world doesn't want to do business with this country. It is a hostile business environment. Why will you take your money and come invest here if there's a government that is hostile to business and outspoken hostile to business? So, this is it. If the government wants to go down this route, it's difficult. There's difficult times ahead. But here's the government of the United States has said, this is our conditions. And what do we expect? I don't expect anything because they are ideologically so entrenched in what they do that they cannot escape that. And, then the population will have to vote them out. That's the only way. But in the meantime, we'll have to raise our voices as hard as we could.
Yeah.
And I add something to that, Alec?
Yep.
Please. Corné already said that we did not go there to complain about anything. We went there with a value proposition. And that value proposition was that us, as farmers, as South African farmers, very specifically Afrikaner farmers, we do not claim that we understand Africa. We said to them, we know we do not understand Africa well, but we understand her much better than the Chinese or the Americans or the Brazilians or the Dutch or any of the other more aggressive investors in African agriculture. Today, we already have close to 5,000 South African and Zimbabwean farmers who are farming in 44 countries in Africa. And these farmers are not only investing in deep rural areas, they earn dollars there. And they create jobs where it is needed most. We say to them, the big war of our generation is the war on poverty and hunger on this continent. And there's only one way to win that war. That is by creating wealth. And no other sector of the economy of our region can create more wealth in a shorter space of time and on a broader basis than agriculture can. And we have shown that we understand how to do it because we've been doing it for 370 years. We spoke of the impediments. We said we struggle to get access to financing because if you do not own your farmland, if you do not have a title deed for it, you do not have collateral to offer a bank to access production financing. We say to them, the most important impediment is actually a poor policy environment. Because capital is as shy as the deer. You scare it and it runs. And we fear that the policy environment in South Africa is now scaring off the big investors. Why would you invest in a country where they can expropriate you at less than market-related value, even up to no compensation? And why would you invest if you need to give away 30% or 51% of your business once you become successful?
It's passionate. It's emotional. I can see, and thank you for sharing that with us, Theo and Gerard, the force of what you told the Americans. But Corné, here's the bottom line. where you operate, you have got a hard-headed opponent who says, we don't actually care what you guys, we know you might think that it's logical, but we don't care. We're doubling down on the system that we've got, and we're just going to continue with this. So it's once again, you've reaffirmed much of the issues that we're trying to deal with in South Africa, not just here locally, but now in the international community. And as Theo said earlier, these guys are well informed. But what next? What happens next? And indeed, what happens to the constituency that you guys represent, these Afrikaner Doms 3 amigos? What are Afrikaners to take from all of this?
I think we are bringing back a message of hope, a very strong message of hope. We didn't come back with the bad news. We came back with a message that says the biggest economy in the world, the strongest military power in the world, the leadership in that country, the business community has taken note of what's going on in South Africa. And I think that's positive, it's constructive. The point that we made throughout was, we don't want to get solutions in isolation only for the Afrikaner people. We want South Africa to succeed. We want the country to go forward. I made very strongly the point that the biggest sufferers under this terrible policy at the moment are black people. Black young people are suffering, being unemployed, etc. And as you correctly pointed out, we do have a government that is completely ideologically driven by the ANC, the larger party at the moment. And they believe that those things are just a fait accompli and they're going to continue with that. Well, then we have to appeal to the individual citizens of South Africa directly. If the government is not prepared to take the necessary steps in the best interest of the society and the electorate out there, these things need to be communicated to ordinary citizens, black, white, colored, Indian, doesn't matter, and get across to them what South Africa can and should be like in a country where we can prosper, where we can create economic growth, where we can create jobs, where we will have stability, etc., etc. The problem at the moment is that the ANC seems to be focused on aid and not on trade. And when we went there, we said we want to put on the table a proposed deal, a deal that South Africa should have put on the table. And that is, first of all, that we should have proposals in terms of how successful trade, what is in the United States, for them as our second largest partner to continue with this relationship if we make it impossible for them to enter our market and to be part of that process. And as Stu correctly pointed out, the opportunities are endless. The market is there. They want to take what we can produce in South Africa. It can be absolutely the benefit of everybody in South Africa to create those kind of jobs. But it seems that there's an ideological hiccup, and we have to put pressure on that. And if need be, and we will do that, we will go directly to the individual public out there and say, this can be different. There can be jobs. There can be opportunities for all of us. But then we need to do what is necessary. And it seems at the moment that there's this belief that there's no real problem. We just ride out the storm and we will come to some kind of a trade deal with the United States and they will then accept that and we can continue as is. No, it's not. And those 4 preconditions that we were asked to bring back to South Africa and to convey to the government are very serious. If the White House and the Trump administration says directly to you, without these conditions being met, there cannot be normal reset of relations between these two countries. And then the ANC can obviously say, well, we are not interested, we were not going to listen to this, but it will have consequences. And the people that will suffer will be the electorate. And there will come a time when the electorate says, no, not good enough. I predict if the ANC goes along with this doubling down, their support will dwindle, goodbye, see you later.
Just reaffirm those 4 preconditions, which were interpreted here as ultimatums?
Yes, it was clearly said by the White House to us, the Trump administration, said clearly, these are the conditions. And some people try to create now the impression that these things are things that we thought out. No, it's not. It addresses real concerns. Let me quickly name the 4. The first one was that all rural crimes, rural attacks, farm attacks, should be declared a priority crime. And it should be investigated by the Hawks on that level. The second one was that the ANC should publicly distance themselves from the chant or the song in any way that has been used of kill the boer, kill the farmer. I specifically asked in the White House, are you requesting this or want this from the government? They said, no, we want the ANC as the largest party in the government, they should denounce it. The third one was with regard to the whole question of expropriation. And they said there can be no expropriation without compensation, fair market compensation, and also after the normal legal processes to the end have been followed. And then the last one that they basically deal was black economic empowerment legislation, the race-based legislation. And they said, well, if United States companies, entities would like to invest in South Africa, but they should be exempted from that, they're not going to be part of that. Those are four absolutely important things as preconditions to normalize relations. And if South Africa thinks they can conclude a trade deal and ignore these things, let's see how it plays.
So the trade deal's off the table because the ANC has said we are not going to comply with what we see as ultimatum.
Well, then the United States will have to take their own decision on their side. And the problem is the 9th of July is exactly a week from now, or a little bit more than a week from now. I don't know if an extension will be given or what the case may be. But if South Africa believes, or the ANC believes, and that's a serious problem here. And it also places the government of national unity in serious jeopardy. It's one thing to say for parties, we all agree that there should be economic growth and job creation. But the two most vital things in the country, the economic policy and to international relations, both of them now are being claimed by the ANC as their exclusive domain. Well, we must ask the question, where are we going if that is the case? And that's why I asked that question, Parliament, and there are other parties in the government of national unity that also feel strongly that we should have changed in our economic policy, and I haven't even touched international relations.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the political situation divvies up after this. But just to close off with, gents, I'd love you to give me some insight, your biggest takeaway, starting with you, Gerard, from your 10 days together and the people you met in the United States. What are you bringing home that you can share with your constituency?
Something I've picked up, Alec, is, when Trump stood there on the tarmac and he said there are terrible things happening in South Africa, everything, everybody were up in arms. And we thought, what was he talking about? Well, we made our own conclusions, but I know one thing, they know more than what even us know. They know what's happening, what is the intentions of the ANC. They know. So these guys must take note. They think they do things in secret. It is not in secret. Secondly, we have a government that take care of what's happening in South Africa. They see the value of South Africa as an economic partner, and they do not want this country to go down. So when we are there, we don't argue for us, but because for us to prosper and the rest of the country do not prosper doesn't make sense. We made out a case for South Africa to prosper. Everybody needs to have a fair opportunity in this economy to make it work. And for that, we have the support of that nation. That we have a brief moment in history where we can make it work. Thirdly, we can make this thing work. And even if the ANC turns today and say, guys, give us help, what can we do? There will be help. There's 9 days before the tariff deadline expires. If they in this time say, give us help, give us advice, there are people that stand ready and say, we can help you through this thing. The point is just this. Can they depart from their ideological gestremdheid? What is it? What is the English for that?
Obsession.
Obsession.
Focus.
Focus. If they can depart from that, but that binds them, that stands in the way. They are prepared to sacrifice this country for that. But there's help. Things can turn around. And this country can, if we have sound policies in place, we can take this place, we can turn this place around. South Africans can turn these things around. We can make it work. There is hope. But there's one condition and there's one obstacle, and that is currently the ANC, the governing party.
Theo?
Three takeaways from my side. The first, apart from that, they are really well informed. We were very impressed with the competence of the officials with whom we had meetings. They know exactly what is happening here, and they are not against South Africa. They are not against the people of South Africa. they are against certain policies and they have dug in their heels. They will not budge. We need to change those policies to have a normalized relationship with them and to utilize the opportunities again. Secondly, the USA is immune to the accusations which is being thrown against us, which we are so used to. If you criticize corruption and nepotism and poor policies, then you are anti-transformation. They don't care about that. What they care about is us sticking to the rules. And those rules are mostly the contents of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Stick to the rules. You don't stick to the rules, we will not do business with you. And thirdly, in terms of the markets, the opportunities are endless. We can, and they are keen to import from us. They say they can import everything which we are ready to export to them. And I think we must start to work towards that, whether the ANC is on board with it or not. We must position ourselves as a major trading partner to them. And I think this kind of direct discussions with them, not going through the ANC, is the way to do it. They told us, we sat there in the White House and they said to us, it seems to us that this message is not getting across, not through the embassy you have in Washington and not through the government and the delegation who was in the Oval Office. The message is very simple. We have conditions, and these are the 4 conditions. And would you mind to communicate that through your channels? And then that evening, after we wrote the report on it, we send it back to them, to each one of those departments, and says, this is what we will communicate on your request. Are you comfortable with the way we articulate it? And they even brought about a few changes. Some language changes here, a word there, something to add here. So we cleared it out with them before we sent it out to the world.
Fabulous. Corne, last word from your side, because you are the guy who's going to have to go back into that arena where you are taught economic lessons by the economically ignorant.
The Lecture 2 on Economics 101 will be on the 16th of July, when the President's vote will be debated in Parliament, and I will take it further there. However, in the meantime, I come back very optimistic with a lot of hope. The message we took was very, very well received. We were so cordially received. Doors were opened that nobody thought was possible, be that in the Senate, be that in the House of Representatives, be that at the State Department or the White House, all the different institutions, think tanks that we saw, all the agricultural bodies that we saw. We were very, very, very cordially accommodated and listened to. And as Theo correctly points out, the people want to trade. They want to make a deal with South Africa. I believe what we need to do is we can make South Africa the great country that it can be. And that also includes the rights of the Afrikaner community and other minorities. And that is what we want there to explain. And I think it's just a question of time when this will come to reality, when this will be implemented. And if need be, we need to get this message to ordinary South African citizens, Afrikaner, English, black, white, it doesn't matter. People who want a positive life, who want to go forward in life, that's the message that we bring back. We will go back to Washington and we'll take it further again. I am optimistic.
You say you'll go back to Washington?
Well, they made it very clear that they would like to see us and other people there as soon as possible again to take these things further. Because we've got to build a relationship. We've got to rebuild trust between South Africa and the United States. Trust is at the lowest level possible at the moment. That's why we stepped in as Afrikaners, as leaders in our own community. And maybe other communities we will take a lot, come future times, we will see.
What we haven't spoken about, and it's a whole subject on its own, is that if you've got such a big country and such diverse opinions, isn't it time to seriously look at parts of the country that want to be aligned with America? And here, it's no prizes for guessing, the Western Cape, and others perhaps like Limpopo and Mpumalanga, that don't want to be related with the United States can go their own way. Is that not something that increasingly should come onto the agenda?
Part of that was on the agenda, and part of that was brought to our attention, and we did discuss all these things. The first prize is that we need to get a successful situation for all of South Africa, for all its citizens, from the north to the south, from the east to the west. Hopefully, we can bring that kind of sanity in the benefit of everybody in South Africa. But if the ANC insists and they want to close businesses down and drive people off their land, then obviously other options and things will become as bigger and bigger reality as we go forward. But we are not just going to simply relinquish what we've achieved in South Africa. We first want to get everybody to accept and understand what a wonderful, successful country we can be. And I believe we will get there.
But Kone, a clip in the boss, but what if the various political parties outside the ANC got together, created a deal? Perhaps MK wants KZN to go it alone and to be friends with China. Perhaps the EFF wants Limpopo to maybe merge with Zim. Who knows? Is that not an option? Because the stumbling block here is only 40% of the vote, not over 50 as it was. Is that option off the table?
No, it's not off the table, but it's not on the table as the only option at the moment. A number of things on the table. What I think is we need a dialogue in South Africa, a national dialogue, where these things can be discussed. And where one party can't just come to the table and say, no, we insist, you can discuss all these things. But economic policy, one answer and one answer only. International relations, only this answer and then nothing else. I don't think that's a real dialogue. Afrikaners have a track record of successfully interacting with other communities. We will continue to do so. And as I've said, we bring a message of hope that can include all these kinds of possible outcomes. But in the end, we will create a future in South Africa. We were very well also briefed with regard to the refugee situation, and we made it very clear. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. But Afrikaners want to make it a success in South Africa. We are Africans, and we are determined to make a success. But the issues that you are putting on the table are surely options that can play out as things go forward. But time will tell when we get to that point.
How long must South Africans, or your constituency in particular, Afrikaners, fussbait for?
Until we succeed, we will never, ever give up.
How long, though? Years, decades, centuries?
No. I'm not talking about decades. I don't know. I think we are seeing an implosion of a former mighty party that was dominating our political sphere for a very, very long time. The reality has been catching up with them internationally, but also in South Africa, in terms of their support, etc., etc. Now is the time for people that believe that we can create this positive future to stand up, to take hands, to get involved, and to actively become part and active in society. It's just a question of when, how, and it will be there. I'm not talking about decades, definitely not, no.
Corné Mulder is the leader of the Freedom Front Plus. Theo de Jager, the executive chair of the South African Agricultural Association Institute. Did I get it right, Theo? SAAI?
Southern African Agri Initiative.
Initiative. And Gerard Papenfuss, the chief executive of NIASA. Gents, thanks for joining me today on your return from the United States. I'm Alec Hogg from biznews.com.